Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Okay, hold on. Let's make sure everything is working. We have recording on. I see people's beautiful face. Let's go to the gallery view. Oh, now I see everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome, YTT. Oh my goodness, I've been looking forward to today for so long. I'm so excited. Day one is finally here. Okay, so how this is going to work is I'm going to mute all of you right now because we're all going to talk and it's going to be very interactive, but I like to keep the recording clean. So if I'm just talking or lecturing, I'm going to mute everyone by default. That way people watching the recording later have a nice clean audio. I want to welcome you. I'm so honored you're here. And I have a really amazing feeling about you guys as a group. I really feel like this YTT class is sort of like next level. I've just been like reading about all of you guys in the Facebook group and just so impressed with all of your backgrounds. And I don't know if it's because it's 2019 or what, but I just feel like this group, it's like the next generation YTT. I just feel like you guys are already so advanced. That's just my impulse. That's just my intuition. So I'm so honored you're here for call one. So we have a lot to cover today, and I know a lot of you might have questions as well. So I'm going to leave time for questions at the end. So any like syllabus questions, technical questions, there's going to be time for all of that. But I don't want to do those at the beginning because it can tend to get, really long. And I think a lot of questions you guys might have might naturally be answered throughout the course of just naturally moving through a live call together. Yeah. Okay. So first things first. Congratulations, because you made it to Zoom. You're on the call, and hopefully you can hear me. Someone just said they can't hear me, but all of you can hear me, right? Thumbs up. Right. So if that was you who just posted that, check your own computer audio because maybe you need to up the volume or something like that. I'm so excited to finally meet you all. Okay, so I hear Dana saying that in the chat. Okay, so we're gonna play a game to start, and then we'll ground in. Oh yeah, see, we hear people. So actually, whoever just did that, you're actually winning the game because the first thing in the game was to unmute yourself and just say namaste. Yay. Just say something. Namaste. Gonna be crazy for a minute. Okay. So mute and now remute yourself. Now everyone remute. So does everyone see how to do that on your participant dashboard? So that's really important that you know how to mute and unmute yourself. So if you want to say something or I call on you or you want to share, that you know how to do that. Okay, so if you struggle with that, talk to your Jetta groups later today. Yep, you got it. Mute and unmute. Okay, perfect. And now, next thing, type your favorite yoga pose in the chat box because the chat box gets super active during these calls, okay? So you want to make sure you can A, see the chat box, but B, that you can also chat something in it. So Dana says cobra. She's all over it. Victoria says tree. Kailua, how do I say your name? Happy baby, dancer, down dog. Ariana says, okay, it's going so fast. Awesome, you guys. Perfect. Kira says triangle. So perfect. Christy, hi, baby. Love, she says. I don't know what pose that is, but I like it. The love pose. I love you too. I didn't find the chat box. Okay, so look at the bottom of your, well, see, this is why it's hard because it's going to look different if you're on mobile. But if you're on a computer, you want to look at the very bottom of your screen and you might have to kind of hover over the bottom of the screen. So that's a good trick with Zoom, you guys, is to always just like take your mouse down to the bottom of the screen and a lot of things pop up. And you should see a chat functionality, like right next to the share button, there's chat. And if you're on mobile, I think you want to just start swiping, just start looking for it. The TAs are really your go-to people on how to use mobile because I never use it because I'm always on a PC when I'm leading the calls.
Hey, Brett, on mobile, just hit participants and then chat on the lower left-hand corner.
Participants, chat on the lower left-hand corner. Thank you, Stephanie.
Yep.
Cool. So next, now we're getting harder as we go here, guys. Next, see if you can figure out how to raise your hand and then lower your hand. This one's harder. Okay, Margie got it. Abigail got it. Nick got it. Yeah, and some people are raising their hand in real life. You can do that too, but we're talking about on the dashboard, guys, on the dashboard, because I can only see so many of your faces on my screen at once. You're all so beautiful. It looks awesome. Okay, looks like we have a lot of people. Yeah, great. So you're just going to raise it and lower it. So at the beginning, I'm going to suggest, if you can, raise your hand and lower it if you want to speak or say something. But as we get more comfortable with one another on the calls and we all get to know each other better, you can just mute and unmute. But at the beginning, or if we have a lot of people who want to say something on one topic, this feature is really, really helpful. So if you raised your hand now, lower it. And cool. And then I'm going to go over a couple other little housekeeping activities. So the first is, and I'm going to keep muting everyone because people are continuing to join. Yeah. The first is, you made it to this live call, which is awesome. During the first couple of weeks of training, what we do to really help you guys get in a rhythm and get in a routine is that we send out emails 15 minutes, I think it is, before each call. So hopefully you received that email. If you did, put yes in the chat. Yes, in the chat. We're going to do that for the first 2 weeks. So we do that for the first 2 weeks of training. We always send an email 15 minutes before the call. Now, if you didn't receive that email, it might be in your junk or spam. And it's something you definitely want to check that you're getting, because we're going to send other updates through that same email system. So if you didn't get the call reminder emails, that's a sign that maybe we're filtered to go to your junk or spam, which we want to fix, or that you're not set up correctly in our system to be getting all the YTT January class related emails. Okay. So make sure you get those emails. And then I would really suggest like adding our call time, or whatever your regular call time is, whether you're coming 3 times a week or just the 1 time a week, add it to like your Google Calendar. That's what I do. And it's really, really helpful. I just have the Google Calendar and the live and the call URL, which is the same URL you use today. It's also at the top of the syllabus. And that will really help you stay on a rhythm. But for the first 2 weeks, we're going to email you 15 minutes before every call. Okay. And for sometimes it's like not helpful because it's emailing you about Saturday's call and you don't come to Saturday's call. You're in the Wednesday class or whatever. But just know that you want to be looking for those emails. Okay. And they're going to go away after 2 weeks. Next up, your TAs. You've met your TAs in the Facebook group, Jen and Stephanie. They are amazing. Please be respectful of their time as you ask questions. Look in the syllabus. We have a lot of guidelines written out for you. They both have kids and families, but they are really here to support you. So if you really do get stuck or you can't find an answer to something in, the syllabus, or have a technical question or trouble uploading your poses, they are here to help you. Okay, so I want to dive into some of the material that we watched for today. And we have our student teachers today. So you're also going to see a little bit how the whole student teacher thing works. It's going to be a little different today because it's the first call. But the way I really like to start every call is just by us all grounding in and taking a couple deep breaths together. So let's do that now. So just get comfortable wherever you're sitting and close your eyes. And let's just take the left hand fully on the chest, the heart, and the right hand on top. And just close your eyes, feel the hips ground down into the chair, the sofa, floor, wherever you're sitting. Feel the shoulders drop and relax down the back. And we'll just take 3 to 5 deep breaths. So you're just going to inhale and feel the chest rise beneath the palms. And each exhale, you're just going to let gravity take over. Feel the shoulders melt down, the seat get heavier. 2 or 3 deep inhales and exhalations like this. Again, really feeling the movement of the rib cage under the palms. And the sternum lifting up and descending back down. And then inside, going a layer deeper, And just feel the glow or the beating of your heart. And just sense it already connected to everyone else in this group. It's not a coincidence. It's not random that you're here on this call today in this moment for this training that you picked. This is the beginning of a really magical journey together. And just trust that you're in the right place, that your questions are going to get answered. And any overwhelm you may be feeling about the material, just know that this path has been well paved. You're not just connected all to one another on this call. You're actually connected to hundreds of incredible graduates who've paved this path for you, who've been where you're sitting now. So you're connected to all of them as well, even if you don't realize it. Okay, take one more huge deep breath. Inhale, filling up as much as you can. And exhale, letting everything go. And once more, huge breath in. Get taller and wider. As you exhale, you can even sigh out the mouth. Good. And then let the hands drop to the lap. Dip the chin. Take a moment to collect yourself and then slowly blink the eyes open. And then come back to your screen when you're ready. Do we feel better? I feel better. Okay. All right. So the material we're talking about today is the A section, which is a lot of really guidelines. So we'll go over a little bit of that, but I really want to dive into the meat of the material with you guys today, which is the Welcome to Anatomy video, which is B.1.1, and the Individuality and Pose is Not the Goal video, which is B.1.2, and I want to talk about chanting. So I'd love it if one of our student teachers would like to volunteer to tell us their takeaways from all this material. And I know it's a little atypical because we had material that was a little bit more informative in terms of how the training works. Would one of our student teachers like to volunteer? If so, just unmute yourself. And you can also tell us where you're from.
This is Maren.
Yes. Okay, and tell us where you're from as well.
So I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I work in St. Paul, and it's really cold here today. Yeah, so that's me.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad you're here. Will you tell us your takeaways from all the material that was covered from this week? Like what stood out, what you liked, what you were,
Yeah, so I really liked the piece about the anatomical reasons to chant. So I just made notes that it stimulates the pituitary gland and releases endorphins, that it triggers a relaxation response and helps us to slow the breath. And that for me, it felt like it was permission to chant either as a teacher or personally, even if it's not pretty, if it doesn't sound great, because I'm not a good singer. So I really like that. And then do you want me to go through all of them, or should I stop after that one?
Let's stop there. That was awesome.
Okay.
Wow, I'm very impressed. Okay, so we're diving right into it. So great job, Maren, and super awesome to meet you. I'm glad you have a scarf and you're nice and cozy. So going into chanting, how many of you think you want to incorporate chanting into your yoga practice, and how many think you don't? I'm launching a quick poll here because I'm curious. Because what I like to do is to actually hear from different students who, like some who are really into chanting and definitely feel like they want to incorporate it, and then hear from some folks who maybe don't, because there isn't a right answer here. So when we talk about video B.1.1, and can you guys see the poll? There should be a yes. So yes, if you think you want to incorporate chanting, no, if you think you do not. And again, there's no right or wrong. This is just be honest. I didn't incorporate chanting in my teaching for years after starting. And don't worry, you don't have to fill out the poll. It's totally optional. It's just kind of fun. So chanting, what I want to present to you guys is that chanting is a tool in your teaching. So just like hands-on adjustments is a tool that you may or may not want to use, just like the atmosphere that you create is a tool, like dimming the lights or using essential oils, right? That's a tool that you may or may not want to use. Just like visual demonstration, right? Some teachers really like to visually demo at the front of the room, and that's a teaching tool. Some don't, right? So we have a lot of tools in our toolkit as yoga teachers. And I want you to view, or what I'm encouraging for this training is to view chanting as just one of those many tools that you have available. And there's a lot of ways that you can use the healing power of sound as a tool if you don't want to chant Sanskrit words, okay? Because there's definitely benefits to chanting, some of which are what Maren just told us. So do you guys want to put some of them in the chat? What are some of the anatomical benefits of chanting? And don't worry about the poll. I think I messed it up. Sorry. It's been a while since my last YTT call. It's been a month. So it stimulates the pituitary gland, says Mandy. Yes. Releases endorphins, helps with the stress response, slows us down. I think I saw someone say this, but Paula said it helps you find the exhale. More specifically, it helps you extend the exhale, right? Because if we're chanting, the exhale becomes longer. And that's really effective because that helps, when the exhale is longer, that helps us calm down. That's associated with grounding and relaxing. Yeah. So calms the mind, relaxes and sends messages to slows down. Yeah. Okay. All of these are great. So you guys have a really great review in the chat. The big ones I want you to remember, it extends the exhale. It stimulates the upper palate of the mouth. You can kind of think of your whole mouth as a piano keyboard. And when we chant certain Sanskrit words, we're going to talk more about Sanskrit later, but it's so amazing because it's this vibrational language where the tongue is actually pressing into pressure points in the mouth that can help the pituitary to secrete, for example. So a lot of chants actually are awakening the third eye because you're hitting the tongue to the upper palate of the mouth in certain situations. So that when you're chanting certain Sanskrit words, so that can also be very effective. So that's something to keep in mind. The pituitary gland, let's just review. It's a pea-sized gland. I like to say where the root of your nose meets your skull bone. So just imagine like a teeny tiny green pea kind of behind my eye in the center of my head, where the root of the nose meets the skull bone. That's exactly how Yogi Bhajan described it. So that's kind of a visual for you when we talk about the pituitary gland, because I know when you're just starting, or I know when I just started, I had no idea where any of these glands were. And why is it so important, the pituitary? Well, it's the master gland of the body. So it's really regulating all the other glands in the body. Okay, it releases endorphins. A lot of you guys said that, and that's awesome. So let's switch gears now and quickly talk about the emotional benefits of chanting. So not like so necessarily physical things that are happening in our body, but what are some of the more emotional benefits of why you may or may not want to do this in class? So Alexandra says it helps them tune in. Paula says unity. Yeah, so I think a big one is it helps unite the group, right? So these are benefits of this tool. We're just talking about the tool of chanting right now. Here's some of the benefits, right? It creates a feeling of unity within your class because you all come together to, say Om or whatever it is you're doing. What I want to go with what Alexandra said. She said to tune in, and Margie Kempton said to create a sacred space. So it's a way of sort of separating yoga class time from the time that was just before yoga class time, where everyone's checking their phone and putting their stuff away and figuring out where their mat is next to the other person's mat, right? So it's sort of just, it's like this nice bookend where it's just, it really helps separate the time from, it helps open a sacred space, right? And then you can chant at the end as well. And that's the end of the bookend, right? Okay, and Gail says, negative, people can feel self-conscious. It's not the norm in our society to chant. Yes. Okay, so Gail, maybe you want to volunteer as someone to share with us why you think you don't want to incorporate chanting, because there's a lot of reasons you might not want to, and I want to cover all of those. So, and then I think someone kind of mentioned this is the emotional benefits. The other really big one I'd talk about is just focusing the mind, right? So if your students are like, you know, is my mat in the right position? What am I going to cook for dinner? Da, 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 da. Okay, class is starting. The teacher's saying stuff. Their mind is racing, right? But if they chant, it's very hard to think about what you're buying for dinner while you're chanting Om, for example, right? So it really helps kind of clear, concentrate, and focus the mind. It puts you in the present moment. It quiets the ego, says Dina. Beautifully said. Yeah. So, and then at a more energetic level, we are liquid, right? We're majority liquid in our bodies. We're made up a lot of water and beyond that, other liquids, right? Other bodily fluids. So if any of you have ever been to like sound healing or a sound bath or been near a really big gong, have you had the experience, like put yes in the chat, of that affecting you? And that's because those sound currents, those sound vibrations, just like if you had water in a bowl and we tapped the bowl and it had ripples, that same thing is happening to us, right? So at a very, subtler level, when you chant, you are vibrating your own liquid, right? You're vibrating your energetic body, your energetic being. Which is really, really cool. So it vibrates the body at a cellular level. I have here written in my notes. Yeah, which is really nice. And sound baths are amazing, you guys. If you haven't ever been to one, I really encourage you to check it out. Okay, so let's hear from someone who thinks that they want to, the last thing I wanted to say was, there was a different ringing in my ear from my husband's iPad. I don't know how they're connected. The other thing I wanted to say is that a concept I'd like to present to you, because I know Marin was saying how she doesn't feel like she's a good singer. And I don't feel like I am either. But a concept that I like to share in this YTT module is that your voice is uniquely healing for your unique energetic body. So, and you can empower your students with this knowledge too. So when we chant, we're vibrating. That's why I like talking about the singing bowls. It's like we're vibrating, and your sound current, your unique voice is beautifully and uniquely healing for your body, for your unique energy body, because it's about the vibration. It's not about how you sound like a singer sort of being judged by an audience. It's like, and I don't know if any of you here have ever done like 22-minute chants. I know I lead them in the Kundalini Mastermind weekend. We chant long ekankars for 22 minutes every day, and it is so amazing. And you just feel so clear and open. And it's because, and it's not about whether your ekankars sound pretty or not. It's about you're vibrating everything and taking all like the liquid, I think of it, in the body to this higher vibrational frequency. It's like tuning a fork, says Vicky. Yeah. So please don't get hung up on, whether you have a good singing voice. That's not what this is about. Now, some people are going to want to, some of you, when you go out and start teaching, we're already talking about teaching and it's day one, but some of you are going to be naturally drawn to chanting and you're going to want to incorporate it. Some of you might not. And both are valid. The underlying principle, we kind of skipped ahead because Marin was so prepared, but I did want to go over a couple of things with you from that A.1 video. But one of them was the biggest idea that I really want you to take out of this whole training experience is trusting your own direct experience. Trusting your own direct experience. So if you have a very powerful, positive experience with chanting, that's something you're going to want to teach. That's something you're going to want to share. If you don't yet have a positive, powerful, personal experience with chanting, that's something you're not going to want to teach yet. And that's fine. There's going to be a lot of students who aren't ready to chant yet either, and they're going to be really attracted to your class because, you know, you're offering something different. So again, this module is just presenting chanting as a tool, and you have so many tools as a teacher. So now let's hear from someone, and it can be a student teacher. And guys, why we have the student teachers is just so no one ever feels on the spot, right? Because the student teachers will do more of their takeaways. You'll see as time goes on, and we'll hear more later in the call. But the idea with the student teachers is so that I can kind of call on people without, if no one volunteers, and people don't feel put on the spot because they knew to prepare material for today. Does that make sense? So it's just a way to help everyone's voice be heard without anyone ever feeling nervous. So student teacher or a non-student teacher, if you just want to share and are brave, can someone share from the side of being very passionate about chanting and wanting to incorporate it into your practice and why you love it so much?
Hi, this is Abigail.
Abigail, okay, awesome. And you're also a student teacher for today, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, awesome. And where are you from?
I'm from London.
Beautiful.
So I'm in the UK.
Okay, awesome.
So I'm passionate about chanting. However, I feel it's more to me to explain the words. For example, I'm not comfortable with chanting when I don't know what I'm saying and the explanation comes afterwards. And I think that can create a lot of uncomfortability in class when you tell people to say things and you don't know what you're saying. But I do like chanting. However, I think for teaching, I would keep it to very short chants. Because I think that helps bring people together. And then if people want to explore chanting, maybe on a smaller group or a one-to-one basis, then perhaps get into longer chanting. But to me, it always feels with the shorter chants, people dig in a bit more, especially if the class is an hour long. So I definitely would. I have good experiences with chanting, but I think it is more about the explanation and the approach that you take. And I think using the Sanskrit words helps, but sometimes there is not a direct correlation between the Sanskrit word and, for example, English. So I feel you do have to take care in explaining that to people.
Oh, I love it. Yes. Awesome. Awesome share. So I think Kristen said this in the video, and I will echo it. And thank you for reminding us as well. But really important, you want to tell people what they're chanting if they're chanting, right? I would say that is a must. And a lot of teachers don't do this enough, right? So ways that you can do this is that you can come to class with little handouts that you pass out, right? That actually have the chant written out if you're chanting Sanskrit and the English underneath. You could also have like a whiteboard or a little mini poster board or something at the top of class with you where you could have it written out. If you don't have a handout or a whiteboard prepared, you can also just explain what it means. And what I always like to do is actually offer a couple different interpretations. So instead of just saying, Satnam means this one thing, offer up a couple different interpretations or variations for people. And I think this is really helpful because it helps show your students that, when we're working with the Sanskrit language, a lot of this is interpretive. We're going to see this a lot when we look at the Yoga Sutras. But it's not like a direct one-to-one correlation, just like Abigail said, with like one English word, right? There's so many ways that we can interpret this. And we're going to talk about this in this call when we talk about B.1.2 and we talk about that sutra that Kristen presents. So always tell people what it means. Be prepared to give multiple meanings, or if you can have a handout or index cards or something, even better. And then if you don't want to use Sanskrit words, there is still the opportunity to invite the healing power of sound into your classes. And here are some ideas for you guys. There is a chanting resources doc also in your syllabus that's linked up. So you're going to want to check that out. But if you want to use the healing power of sound as a tool without necessarily going down the Sanskrit route, you can use sounds like right? Or right? So even having people do like an audible sigh right? Like if they're in a forward fold or pigeon, right? So you can get people to say words like, like things like that. Tying into that is you could also offer up or have students chant this seed sounds, it's called, of the different chakras. So lam, vam, ram, right? These don't mean anything. They're not Sanskrit words. They are just sounds that resonate, that match the vibrational frequency of each chakra. So those are really great as an idea to incorporate if you don't really want to go with Sanskrit. But you could have everyone, chant lam or ram if you're focusing on third chakra, right? So you have that option. You could also incorporate the healing power of sound by singing to your students in Shavasana. I had a teacher who used to do that, and it was so amazing. Obviously, only if you love and enjoy singing would you do that. But I've also had teachers play instruments, right? So I have one that does the ukulele, singing bowls, chimes, maybe, playing music during Savasana. So there are ways to incorporate the healing power of sound and even get people using their voice without necessarily going the Sanskrit route. Okay, so that's a way that you can be creative. And then lastly, I just want to mention the Sea of Ohms. Has anyone ever done a Sea of Ohms? So how that works is instead of everyone chanting Om together just once, you do rolling Ohms. So you say, huge deep breath in, Om, and then people just continue Oming. So everyone just Ohms until it sort of naturally comes to a close. And it can be 1 minute or, 15 minutes. You can really decide, but that's a really lovely way. And I always like to say Om is like the child's pose of chanting, right? It's like the one that people, I think, are the most comfortable with, the most open to. So if you're nervous, or maybe your students might not be that receptive, that's like a really great one to start with, right? Om. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say on that. So let's hear from someone now, and it can be a student, teacher, or it can be someone else who thinks they don't want to incorporate chanting right away, and why. Because there's definitely, because that was me when I started, and I had good reasons, and I want to hear from both ends of the spectrum. So does someone want to unmute who wants to tell us about, like, they don't think they're going to do chanting right now or right away?
Hi, Brett. This is Jill Hardesty.
Hi, where are you from?
Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay, awesome. I love it.
The chanting part is new to me, so I would not feel comfortable, trying to teach it until I understand it more for myself. And I'm not real comfortable with my voice, so. But I am willing to learn. It is very interesting.
Yes. And what do you think about your community around where you live? Do you think that people would be open to chanting, or do you think it might kind of turn them off from doing yoga if you open with a bunch of chanting? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my first feeling is that it would probably turn people off.
Yeah.
But I think, like the Sea of Ohms, I like that idea. I think that would be accepted.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So a big takeaway I'm hoping you guys can leave with this is that you're always teaching to who's in front of you, right? And sometimes you might be teaching to people who aren't super receptive or ready to start chanting yet. For example, people who are brand new to yoga and have never done it before, right? I've had lots of people do this yoga teacher training, and some of me tell them, I live in a really small town. Maybe a lot of people are really religious in my town, and I just think this would turn them off, right? Or be confusing. So you need to think about also, what context are you in? Are you teaching corporate yoga at like an office skyscraper high rise, and maybe it's even an open office space, and there's like desks in the background, and some people you're taking your class, right? These are all instances where chanting just maybe wouldn't be appropriate. Do you guys agree? Right? So it's like, this is a tool that you need to use at your discretion. And there's going to be moments and groups of students where it is like they're ready to do 22 minutes of long Ekonkar. And there's going to be times where you really know that it's not a group of people who are, it's not like ready or receptive. It's not even about being right. It's about really, how can you be in service of and connect to the student or the person in front of you, right? And where are you teaching? Are you teaching in a church basement? Are you teaching at a yoga studio that's the beginner class, or a yoga studio that's the super advanced class, and there's a harmonium in the studio? Are you teaching corporate? Are you teaching at the YMCA? Right? So that's the number one thing we always want to be thinking about, is who are we teaching, and how can we serve the person in front of us? Does that make sense? I'm just looking at the chat. What about an extended Amen or Marantha? Would that qualify as chanting? Yes, definitely it would. And Kelsey says, I agree. I love this share from Kelsey. Thank you. I've been to classes where I felt like chanting was sprung on me, so it can be nice to make it clear before class as well. I agree. I'm going to share a personal story now. But I used to go to Jivamukti Yoga in New York, which is Shannon and David Life's studio. It's really amazing. You guys should go if you're ever in Manhattan. But they chant at the beginning. It's like the first 15 minutes of every class is chanting with a harmonium, and they have like a book that they pass out to everyone where all the chants are written. And it used to make me, I was like that type A person who just like wanted to get there and do yoga. So I would actually like purposely come late to all the classes to skip that first 15 minutes so I could just arrive sort of in time for the asana, because it just wasn't jiving with me. And I think it's important as a teacher to meet your students where you are, but you're also going to figure out, well, like, what's your general tone? What's your general teaching style, right? If you always open or close with a chant, or make chanting a big part of your teaching, you're going to attract students and people in the community who resonate with that. And if you maybe don't chant, you're going to resonate and serve so many people who are kind of connecting with that, energy, right? So there's space for everyone. There's no right or wrong here. Does that make sense, guys? Can we get yeses in the chat if you feel me? Right? So it's not like chanting good, not chanting bad. That's not what this is, okay? This is just presenting to you the healing power of sound as a tool, and using your own voice, which is uniquely healing for each individual person, as a tool that's available to you as a teacher, okay? And Mandy said she went to a fitness studio class where the teacher had you guys all hum a lullaby type thing to each other. Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right, let's move on and talk about B.1.2. Oh my gosh, talk about juicy. So here we're talking about the definition of the word yoga, and we're talking about individuality, and the pose is not the goal. Oh, maybe so the sutra that I was thinking of is in the next video. Let me pop open my manual. So is there another student teacher who would like to share with us some of their takeaways, and particularly their takeaways in terms of B.1.2? Student teacher, unmute. Or if we don't get someone, a non-student teacher, or a student teacher, anyone?
This is Jill again.
Okay, I love it. Do it.
The one thing I liked was she talked about how everyone is proportioned differently, and that you bring the pose to the body instead of the body to the pose.
Yes.
And that some poses are not advantageous to everyone.
Advantageous, right? Great word. Thank you for volunteering. Yes, Margie said, or Gail said, the posture is not the goal. Yes. Okay, so this may be a little radical for some of you, but let's go through this module really quick, piece by piece. And we do have, I knew there was a sutra here. So Atha Yoga Anusasunam, which is so beautiful. And she talks about that in the video, both a literal interpretation and a more tantric interpretation, right? So now the exposition of yoga, the first sutra in the Yoga Sutra is like, class, pay attention. Now, the transmission of knowledge of yoga begins. But on a much deeper level, what it's saying is only in the moment of now can yoga occur, right? In the moment of now is yoga. So not thinking that the posture has to look better, or that I need to get somewhere, right? Yoga begins when I can do a bind in my side angle pose. No, right? That's not what true yoga is, or at least how I'm presenting yoga in this training. Okay, so let's just quickly review what are some of the ways we can define the word yoga, because that's an important word for our training. So we want to make sure we know the definition. Does someone want to unmute or just put them in the chat? So Mandy says union and yoke together. Yes, beautifully. To unite. Union of mind with the divine. Beautiful, right? Yes. So really, like the most classic definition is to unite or to yoke together, right? That word yoke together. And that's so beautiful because it's like, it's a yoking, a bringing together of head and heart, right? Of emotions and the logical mind, right? Who like feels emotional or overwhelmed, and then you get off your mat and it's like everything's just sort of synergized. And obviously it's a yoking together of body parts as well as so it's like mind, body, mind, spirit, and then also poses flowing together. So it's all those things. Okay, so let's hear from student teacher or a brave volunteer on what you thought of the definition and your own personal definition of the Hatha Yoga Anusasunam. Does someone want to share? I kind of talked about it already, but
I can say one thing. This is Maren
yeah.
again. I found a definition that said, now the practice of yoga is shared. And I really liked that for a couple of reasons. I like that they brought in the idea of a practice because to me that means that it's ongoing, it's never ending, and that it sort of honors wherever you are that day and that moment, and that changes. And then that it's now, that it can be, like you were saying, anytime. You don't have to be at a certain place, that it can be anytime, and that it's shared, that you give it to others or you experience it with others. So I like that definition that I found.
Awesome. I love it. Did anyone else, because I think part of this homework was to have you guys like research different definitions online and stuff. Did anyone else find a definition they really liked or like piece together their own that they really loved and resonated with? Anyone want to share? Nick, awesome. Hi, nice to meet you. Where are you from?
I'm in Kenilworth, right in the middle of England.
Okay, amazing.
I liked every moment is an opportunity to practice yoga. So like just anywhere, anytime, any place, really. Awesome. Even a quick breath, to calm yourself down.
I love it. Yes. Yeah. So hopefully, you guys are seeing like how broad these definitions can be. We're going to talk about this when we go over the Yoga Sutras in a lot more detail. But I mean, this is what's so juicy about this material. It's like there is no right or wrong. This ancient wisdom is like channeling through each of us, each of you individually, and is going to make your teaching so unique because it's so interpretive, right? And each of us are going to pick out different things we love, and it's going to attract like our perfect student to us. So it's so exciting. Kimmy says, now let us begin. It's about living in the moment. That moment has a beginning and an ending. It's about being present in that process. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Kimmy. And Tuli says she puts it in Finnish words. I love it. I won't be able to understand the Finnish words, but okay, cool. Karen says there's no time like the present. Yes, just not just on the mat, but to be present in our daily life. Yes, I love that. Okay, having seen the bones in this video, because this is the video where Kristen shows you guys the bones, right? So cool. I love it. So after seeing that video, do you think that binding is appropriate or advantageous for all students, and why or why not? Any volunteers, student teachers or otherwise? Is binding appropriate for all students?
Can I speak on that? It's Abigail.
Yes, please do.
Hi. So that was kind of one of the things that really discouraged me from yoga classes and actually made me start my home practice and keep that as my focal point, because so many times I couldn't do the wraps and people would keep coming and trying to push my hands and things into places, or I would like try and twist them and I'd fall, and it felt dangerous. So that kind of pushed me into home practice, but also it made me, in a sense, accept my body because I was like, okay, there's something here that's not working, and I feel like forcing it could be dangerous. It wasn't discomfort, it felt like it would hurt. So I take it very slow with binds, and I definitely don't, and it was really nice to hear in the video, I don't see them as something to get into or to advance to, so to speak. Either you can make the progress, or you cannot, and any of those is cool.
100%. Thank you for sharing that. And you know what you say, it scares me, like when I have a little bit, because I have people come into this training and they tell me that exactly what you just said, that teachers are pushing them into poses, right? That the postures are presented as like, you're supposed to achieve this, you know, finale version of the pose, and then you're kind of a yogi. And, you know, there's definitely that approach to like hardcore athletic Ashtanga, a lot of the Ashtanga lineage is like that. It's wonderful to advance your physical practice. Of course, we want to encourage students, but we don't want to make the pose the goal, right? It's the presence inside the posture that we want to be the goal. And as we're gonna together all now dive deeper into anatomy over the next couple of weeks, what we're gonna see, and I think is what's gonna become very clear to you, looking at bones, right, is that binding is not anatomically advantageous to everyone, and certain yoga poses are not anatomically advantageous to certain types of people, right? So everyone's torso length is different. Everyone's, you know, humerus is different. The proportion, we're going to look at headstand later, but there's so many factors. We're so unique, right? So the way that my femoral head on the greater trochanter fits into my pelvis is going to be at a different angle than yours. And that might mean that I can sit on the ground. Even before I started doing yoga, I could sit on the ground with my knees basically touching the ground. My hips were just like very open, right? While someone else who might have done just as much yoga and dance as me, they might have, you know, knobby bits on that femoral head that just mean that their knees are never going to get to touch the ground when they sit in Sukhasana easy seat, no matter how hard they practice. It's a limitation that's in their skeleton, that's in their bones. And instead of this kind of being viewed, I use the word limitation, which I don't like, it's something to be celebrated, right? Like we're all so unique. And this is why the world really needs yoga teachers like you guys who have this perspective and this knowledge that can share with them that there's nothing wrong with them, and there's nothing wrong with you if you can't do a certain pose, or a certain pose doesn't feel good, or a certain bind doesn't feel good, because we're all so different down to our bones. And this is how injuries happen in yoga too, right? When people think the posture needs to look a certain way, they make the posture the goal. And so what I'm going to keep preaching to you guys throughout this training is that how can we make it, yes, we're going to make it about the physical. We're going to do a ton of anatomy. We're going to look at every yoga pose in detail. We're going to make sure people are as safe as possible. But how can our overarching teaching be a little bit less about perfect, right? Perfecting the posture, and a little bit more about how to accept ourselves in the present moment, right? Is there a way that can get drawn into your teaching so that presence inside the posture is the aim, right? Instead of, you know, presence and self-acceptance in the posture is the aim, instead of it needing to look a certain way. What is the number one tool that you guys think you have as teachers in order to do this? Obviously you have your words, your voice, you can talk about it, but what's another really big tool or thing that we can bring into our teaching to help people find this presence inside the posture instead of feeling like they need to strive for the posture to look a certain way? Ding, ding, ding. Okay, we got it. Mandy got it. Janice got it. The breath, right? We need to focus and cue the breath. So this uplifted yoga, we're very focused on reminding students to breathe. Why? Because it's going to help them notice if they've gone too far, right? It's going to help them stay present in the posture. So if I'm like, I'm going for the bind, I'm really trying to make it happen, even though, you know, my torso is not the right length and it's just not anatomically advantageous to me. When the student's doing that, their breath is constricted. And when we do the uplifted yoga alignment modules that are coming up, these are really long, detailed videos, but you'll see one of the key principles of uplifted yoga alignment is lengthen the spine. Lengthen the spine means that our students can take the fullest, deepest breath at all times. And that's where the yoga is happening, right? In the breathing. It's what separates yoga from all other forms of exercise. It's not about these shapes, right? The shapes are just shapes. It's about the breathing. It's about the presence of mind. So in order to get our students really fully breathing, they need to have the longest spine possible. A lot of binds shorten the spine. It makes it more difficult to breathe, right? So again, if all your limbs are the right length, you can get into the bind and then you can strive to find length. And that's beautiful. But for a lot of people, trying to do the bind will not just make them not feel so great about themselves, but it'll actually compromise their ability to breathe, right? Because they'll have to kind of like hunch over or that kind of thing. So now, am I saying that you should never teach binds? No, but there's a way that we can present this material to our students in such a way that we present the bind not as the goal, but as an option, right? Or we can show several different variations and modifications of a posture and the bind as the final one. So an example might be, you know, come into side angle pose, right? Have your elbow on your thigh, press down through the back heel, reach the heart forward, spiral the chest towards the ceiling. Take a huge deep breath in and out. Notice how you're feeling here. If you think you might want to experiment and take the pose a little deeper, reach your left arm up and around behind you, right? Only if you can take, you know, a long, slow, deep breath here and feel good. You have the option to reach and hold and, you know, take the bind. But notice if the breath is compromised. Check in with yourself. Maybe you want to come back to the first variation where you can take the fullest, deepest breath, right? Something like that, right? So you're teaching it sort of in stages. And then it's so important as the teacher to not always demo the hardest thing, demo the modifications, okay? Really important. And we're going to see throughout the manual, I show modifications of almost every posture in the photos in the manual, because I was shocked when I looked at like 20 manuals before making this manual, and very few of them showed modifications. They all showed the hardest version, right? Which, you know, makes sense because it's like a teacher training, but I would really encourage you to demo the modifications, because your students are going to like worship you and they're going to do what you do, right? So you want to not always just do the hardest thing. You want to stay, and that's another teaching tool that I use all the time. I say, you know, I usually don't bind in this posture. I prefer to use a block, right? You can throw in some comedy into the class, right? There's so many different ways that you can inject this core principle into your teaching, right? This principle of focusing on the breath and shifting away from the pose being the goal, but the presence in the pose being the goal. Here's another example of this. You're cueing chaturanga, right? For people to take chaturanga flow, you can say, press back to down dog, optional chaturanga. Notice if you're the kind of person who always takes chaturanga. If that's you, maybe you know, work to stay in child's pose right now, right? So you can build little things like that into your class, right? Where it's like helping people, because yes, we're teaching poses, but really we're teaching self-awareness, right? That's the gift of this practice, is this incredible sense of self-awareness that it gives us, right? So again, just sprinkling ideas of how this can be brought in, even as we, you know, now go through, and we're going to break down each pose and go into a lot of detail. But just remember, it's the presence and the posture that's the goal. Okay. Yeah, Kimmy says, I say plank, chaturanga, down dog, or skip it. This was incredible for me. Yes. Yeah, it was incredible for me the first time a teacher said to me, notice the first time, or, you know, notice if you're the type of person who always takes chaturanga. And I was that person. And I was like, wow, I'm really hard on myself, you know? And it's like, you don't realize it, but people are going to be having these light bulb moments in your class, and they may or may not tell you about it after. But I mean, this is why I'm so passionate about teaching yoga, because you really change people's lives through this practice. Even though it's a physical practice, it's so much more. Yeah, Nick says you can take the breath with you throughout the day. Okay, so guys, did this change your perspective on what constitutes an advanced yoga teacher? Does anyone want to share about this? What's an advanced yoga person, advanced yoga practitioner? Does anyone want to speak on that or share? Anyone want to unmute? Yes.
So I'm Gail from Wales in the UK.
Nice to meet you.
Everybody. I found this section really important, and it firmed up the ideas I've had about what sort of teacher I want to be. Because in most yoga classes I've been to, there's an element of people are comparing themselves to the person on the mat next to them. They're comparing themselves with the pose that the instructor is demonstrating. And there's an idea of either you're doing it right or you're not. And I don't think that people want to persist with something, persist with their practice, if they feel that they're not progressing or not getting anywhere. And I think that emphasis on self-awareness and doing the right pose for your body is not put out there so much. It just, yeah, I really liked this segment because it made me want to teach more self-awareness.
Thank you for sharing.
Make that the goal rather than, you know, getting deeper into a pose. Even if you can get deeper into it, it might not be beneficial for you to do that.
Yes. And it might not be beneficial today. Maybe next Tuesday, you're going to feel differently and, you know, you'll have slept better or, you know, something. So the self-awareness piece is so critical because it's changing for all of us day to day. So now that you guys are all in YTT, you can start in your own personal practice being like, you know, just because I always do pigeon, regular pigeon, does that mean I shouldn't try pigeon on my back, right? Maybe I should see what that feels like. You can start to experiment. And thank you so much for sharing that, Gail. And I want to just share also something that was going on in the chat box from Selena said, and I hear this so often. She said, I thought I could never be a yoga teacher because I couldn't access or demonstrate some of the more advanced poses. Because have people felt that? And I thought that too. When I was really new to doing yoga, I researched like the one yoga teacher training in my neighborhood at the time. And the thing on the website, it said to apply, it was like, you have to like write an essay, you have to do something to be part of the yoga teacher training. And then it said you have to be able to hold headstand in the center of the room for 5 minutes. And I was like, oh, well, I can't do it. Because at the time I couldn't do that. And I have a very limited headstand practice now as well. And I think I could even do headstand back then, but not in the center of the room and not for 5 minutes. And so I was just so discouraged. And, this is the kind of thinking that really needs to retire. It's not of service. And someone else shared in the chat that the best yoga teacher they ever had was like a 40-year-old who didn't do any fancy poses and just focused on breathing, right? Like you don't have to be able to do all the yoga postures to be a phenomenal yoga teacher. So that just needs to be thrown out right now. Because I want you all to feel so confident, because you should be confident because you have this incredible body of knowledge that we're going to keep moving through. That's not what this is about, right? So please do not think that you are less than or can't be a good teacher if you can't do some certain super hard pose, right? You are going to be so a needed teacher for fellow practitioners in your area who need to connect with someone just like you. So, okay, so that wraps up the information for today. There were a couple other things that I wanted to go over that I usually do from just the A.1 video, which was sort of the very first video. So I'll just go over those quickly. You guys can just put them in the chat. What's the item that I suggest you all buy in that video? So it's like where we get to pretend it's a game show. Yes, Valerie said a mirror. Dina said a mirror. Awesome. Kelsey said a mirror. Yeah. Okay, perfect. I think that's the main one that I wanted to go over. I guess the last one that I usually ask people is, what did this idea of, kind of really learning and trusting your own direct experience and trying to get into action teaching, like even very early in the training, again, of course, with your friends and family. But was that triggering for anyone? Is that exciting for people? What do people think in the chat? because we really want you to get into action, especially because the training is online. It's really, the onus is on you. And we do practice teaching calls in the Zoom, and Stephanie's really masterminded a cool way how that works. But you need to start getting into action right away in teaching. And you can teach a pet or a husband or, you know, a family member, but you need to start using your voice. And this is also why we have the student teacher program, so you guys can start using your voice. And then we have a week where all of you are going to teach meditation to each other coming up in the training. So everyone's going to use their voice, and really, really, guys, get into action, push out of your comfort zone. If you're scared to do this, it's totally normal. But the sooner you get into action, like if you start getting into action and just teaching, even just, you know, I think meditation's a great place to start, because you don't have to worry about telling people where to move their body, right? You can just have them sit, and you can teach them a guided visualization or some deep breathing. You want to start doing that sooner rather than later. I know it's like day one and I'm already like, go do it, but really, really go do it. Okay. So this is, oh, that's so exciting. Manny has 15 people registered for a class. So this is what we're going to do now. After we do kind of an hour of call together, which is going to be very similar to this with like the student teachers and me, and we're going over the material, we'll break into jettas. And for today, the jetta assignment is to all introduce yourselves. So I'll go over what that is in a minute. Before we do, I just want to see, are there any questions that you think you can't get answered in the Facebook group or elsewhere that we need to all address live? I know some of you, if you ordered your manual, I think it was like after the first 2 weeks when we had it available and you haven't gotten it yet, you will get it. It's on the way. It's just, that's why we try to get you to order them so early, because they can take a very long time. But you'll get it soon if you ordered. Just be patient, please. And any other questions about replays, the syllabus, anything like that? Kimmy says, I don't have Facebook. Should I get it? I really would recommend it. I really would. Eleanor asked about insurance for people not in the US. Great question. So when you graduate, we give you this really nice continuing education resource doc. And we have collected insurance recommendations for like Australia, UK, and a bunch of places in that doc. The US insurance I only talk about early on in the training because they have that really cool student policy that's like $20 or something. Okay, so Janice, great question. She says, I didn't see the mention of the manual in the syllabus. I'm assuming we just follow with the units that are in the videos. Yes, exactly, right? So if the syllabus is talking about module 1.2, that's going to correspond to module 1.2 in your books, right? And same for everything in the syllabus for the most part. Okay, and yeah, I would encourage you just to get Facebook for this course. I think it's worth it because so much juice gets discussed in the Facebook group, and then you can just delete it. A lot of people use like a fake name. It's manageable. Okay, so for jettas, okay, so Karen had a great question. Are the jettas today for people who signed up for the Wednesday calls or everyone? So this, because it's the first call, this call tends to be really big because people are, you know, excited and they want to be on the first call live, and come to as many live calls as you can, because really like the content that goes on in the chat box, the stuff that the TAs talk about, the jettas, it makes it amazing. It's a really special layer. It's not the same just watching the replay. So, and you have to be live at least once a week if you're a YTT student. Okay, so come live as much as you can, but you do all know that you kind of have your main day that you're committed to be live. Now, if you happen to be live on a different day, you will just join the jettas for that day. This is like a welcoming, embracing community. So if you have to go, right, if right now Wednesday is not your normal call time and you want to go right now because class is over, you can go, you can drop off. But I'd encourage you to stay, right? I'd encourage you to stay. And Dominique, no, the material's different on all 3 days. By materials different, I mean we go over different videos, different material. And that's why you all want to watch the replay. Okay, so look at the syllabus, because right after this call, what's going to happen is today is going to be hyperlinked as a video that you can watch. All right, so if your main day is Monday, you're going to want to come to Monday's call having watched the Wednesday and Saturday replay. So lots of watching. But you know, if you fall behind, it's okay, right? This material is never being taken away from you. You have access to it forever. But I'd encourage you to stay with the group, because it makes it really, really fun. Okay, Stephanie, can you ask? Yeah, okay. So for today, don't worry about if Wednesday is your normal call time or not. We just want all to get connected and meet each other, right? So if Wednesday's your normal call time, great. If it's not, stay on. We're going to divide you into your jeta groups now. And what you're going to do is, I have it written down. Okay, because I like to prepare. So you're going to say your name. You're going to say your name. You're going to say where you're from. You're going to say a little bit about yourself, right? So like, are you a mom? Are you single? Are you partying? Are you working full time? What's going on? Who are you? Tell us about yourself. And then what you're most excited about in the training and what you're most nervous about. Okay. And then you can also share your favorite yoga pose. So I will write all of these for you guys in the chat. And then student teachers, if you can just kind of take the initiative in your jeta, maybe go first. That would be really appreciated. And you'll see it's a little awkward at the beginning, the first time you do this, but then you get into a rhythm and everyone goes. And if you're totally lost, you can just go by order of the alphabet, right? Just have someone say, okay, you know, Abigail's going first, and then Brianna, and then, you know, whatever. But I promise this is really fun. And you're going to want to start, as you do these jeta groups, like start figuring out like who are a couple people who could really be a support for you as you move throughout this training, right? Who are a couple other people who like you're just really resonating with, or, I mean, I know it's early, but like be on the eye for your people, because you know, all of us are going to support one another. But my goal is that you really leave training with like at least a few people who you really feel like you could reach out to. You know, if you're nervous about something going on with a audition you're doing at a studio, or you want someone to check your sequence and see if it kind of works, right? We want those friendships to form. That's the whole point of this program being live. And you know, don't be fooled that it's online. Like we've had people visit each other. We like crazy, awesome connections happen in this group. So put yourself out there, and now we'll do the jetas. Okay. So what I ask now is if you're going to leave, because I need to see how many people we are in order to set all the rooms properly. So if you're dropping off and you're not staying, it's totally fine. Like Dina's going to go. Awesome. If Wednesday's not your normal call time, we'll get to know you in your call time. All good. Otherwise, if you're staying on, stay on. And then I always pause the recording. So here are the